Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of This Is Your Captain Speaking, powered by Marmind. Really happy to have a buddy of mine on today, Declan Mulkeen from StrategicABM. Dec, great to see you again, mate.
Hi Andy, thanks for inviting me on this show.
Yeah, no worries. So Dec's worked for a company called StrategicABM. He's the CMO over there. And StrategicABM are an ABM agency that helps mostly tech brands, B2B tech brands to be specific. And over the years, myself and Dec have gotten to know each other a bit better, just based on all of the content that he pushes out around the topic of account-based marketing. So if you don't know what the ABM acronym stands for, it's account-based marketing. And they work with some really, really interesting clients, which I'm actually very interested to hear about a bit now as well, Dec, if you bring us through maybe some of your portfolio and what you guys do over there at StrategicABM.
Sure. Okay. Well, thanks for the introduction. Yeah, as you said, Andy, we're an ABM agency, and our ICP, our ideal customer profile, is B2B tech brands, particularly B2B tech brands that are looking to grow in the kind of mid-market and enterprise space. And it's a really, obviously, as you know, Andy, from your own experience, it's a really fast-moving world at the moment, and what we're definitely seeing is that there's kind of two types of clients really that we're seeing coming on board at the moment into account-based marketing. One is clients that are coming, and this is an experience that you have from your own background, coming from the SMB space and have done really well in that market, and are now saying to themselves, well, how do we move now into enterprise? And moving and having your roots in SMB and having a very good reputation in SMB doesn't necessarily translate to the enterprise space. There's a reputation issue, there's a perception issue, there's an awareness issue, and so ABM is a very good play in that area, particularly if you're now looking to kind of step up, win large, target large accounts globally. And try to change the perception that you have in the market. So we have a lot of clients that come from that kind of background that have said, "Hey, look, we're the top dog in our space in SMB, but look, we now need to move into enterprise. So that's part of our journey that we're on at the moment. And obviously, we've got some demand gen motion going, but we clearly need to have a much more targeted account approach, and that's one thing. And then secondly, just very quickly, is the other area we're seeing a lot of movement in is where, from a go-to-market strategy, companies have got a very good solid grounding in their GTM, and they've got a very good demand gen team who are doing an excellent job. They're creating a lot of demand for their product or their service, but they're not being as targeted as they could be. And when you're looking to win deals that are complex, high consideration, long life cycles, high ticket value, the ABM play, where you've really got to get under the skin of an account, and you've really got to know the account, know all the people that are responsible in the account. We all know the statistics: 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 people involved in any decision these days. Gone are the days where one person took a decision anymore, right? So that's a really solid play for us. And so those are the two types of clients that we see really in the education technology space, in the HR technology space, in the fintech space. Martech is a huge area for us, with a lot of clients in that area. Advertising tech, Martech, moving all the way over to some really interesting work around cyber tech, cyber security. So a lot of our clients are in those kind of major camps, really.
Okay, and I guess a lot of those clients then, as you said, are making that sort of natural progression from SMB over to enterprise. You rarely see the opposite happening, enterprise to SMB. You do see it happening, but that's a bit different. It's probably a conversation for another day. But okay, and then in terms of the marketing team sizes, as you mentioned, are they trying to grow their marketing teams whilst moving over to that enterprise focus, or are they seeing you as their marketing arm a little bit, or how does that work?
Kind of both, what you just said there, really, Andy. We have clients who come to us. I mean, generally clients would come to us for two major reasons. One is they have a knowledge issue of how to do account-based marketing, or two, they have a resource issue of not having anybody or sufficient people in the business to do account-based marketing. So it's very often a combination of knowledge and resource, because obviously account-based marketing requires a lot of heavy lifting. it's a discipline that has a certain skill set. I sound like Liam Neeson from Taken or something. A very special skill set that isn't necessarily within the domain of existing marketers within an organization who are doing more to doing product marketing, field marketing, brand, events, etc. An ABM kind of profile is quite different, actually, and we could talk about that perhaps. So it tends to be a mix of the two. Either clients come to us and literally say, look, we need this off the ground, we need to start running our ABM motion, can you run it for us? And we literally run A to Z. And other clients come to us either for the consultancy part, i.e. how do you do it, how do you start it, how do you get it off the ground, or, which is happening more and more, for the areas of ABM that just do not exist within a client. So for example, within clients, they do not have creative departments. So the creative element that is required for an ABM motion in terms of, really creating something so impactful that can change perceptions, that can change people's minds, that can really stimulate an action, that can drive a response. That kind of creativity is you're moving now into the realms of almost the advertising space in terms of creating very, very unique digital assets, very, very unique, what we call account experiences, complete experiences which you wrap the account in. That kind of expertise does not exist in any marketing department. That has to be outsourced. And then the whole area around the kind of the content, the value proposition, designing that kind of very kind of word-esque discipline is also something that is quite difficult to find within marketing organizations.
Oh, for sure. So you guys are basically the madmen of ABM. If you're
I was looking for a similar, I mean, in some way, because it is, you are trying to change hearts and minds ultimately. And I think that's the difference between demand gen and account-based marketing. Obviously, account-based marketing, you have a singular focus. You are laser focused, you know which accounts you want, where they are, why you want them. You've done all that work, and you just have to do the impossible to win them. Well, to win them or to grow them. So remember that ABM is not necessarily about new logos. It's, the origin of ABM is actually about growing accounts, existing accounts, because, the Accentures, the Fujitsus, the Oracles, these guys who kind of pioneered ABM 20 years ago, they have complex solutions that they sell into complex organizations. So that's where the whole thing started. So the purest ABM is one-to-one, one account, one strategy, go deep. And obviously since then, it's obviously grown into one-to-few, and obviously with the use of technology into the kind of one-to-many, where you can target hundreds of thousands or thousands of accounts. Sure.
I mean, that land and expand focus is, so in my career, typically I've seen like a lot of companies would see the ABM pieces as an acquisition play only. And in the tech world, it does start as an acquisition play, because typically in the tech world, the core focus is always, in the beginning at least, or for the first 10 years, let's say, grow with new business. And then it's typically then shed the focus then a little bit more towards existing business and looking to expand within those existing accounts, right? But as you're trying to find your feet in the market, it's always going to be that acquisition strategy. But yeah, super interesting that you say that. Like, when I think about the services that you just mentioned that you guys offer, like creativity, offering a creative solution for your customers in order to do that one-to-one, right? Now, with that, what you're doing is, and this is even difficult as a marketer, in-house marketer within a specific company, but if you're changing the way in which you're marketing, or changing the messaging or positioning or the creatives, how the look and feel of things are that you're pushing out into the world, trying to align on that internally with leadership and different things is tough if you're internal. Now, when you're external, I think that's even amplified even further, trying to convince somebody, especially in the tech space, because you've got founders involved in that as well, typically. Founders, and they've got a specific way of seeing the world and way in which they want things to be communicated and positioned and so on. How are you aligning at the beginning in order to make sure that the positioning and so on is accepted by the client? And then at the same time, when you start launching campaigns, coming up with new creative, etc., how are you how are you making sure that that's fully aligned and that everybody's aware that that's what's going to be happening next week and the week after? Are you dependent on tech for that? Do you have some form of communication to it? Like, how's that working?
Well, I think when we talk to clients about, having to create a unique value proposition, the normal reaction is we've already got one. And we've already got it. We've already worked with an agency on that. It's all beautiful. It's been signed off by the chairman or the CEO or the board or the VCs or whatever. And that's great. But that's actually your organization VP or your value proposition and your go-to-market kind of unique positioning and vision, et cetera, et cetera. What we do with our clients is we create value propositions for the campaign, for the strategy, into whether it's into one account or whether it's into what we call a cluster of accounts. So typically, obviously, as you said, one-to-one is targeting one account because you've got a unique value proposition that you can talk to that account about. And I think another thing which is different between demand gen and ABM is with ABM, everything is flipped. And by flipped, I mean, it's not about you anymore. It's not about how wonderful your product is. It's not about how many bells and whistles you have. It's not how quick you are, how fast you are, how sleek you are. It's all about what the customer and the client care about. So your whole conversation changes about what is it that they're going through? What are they looking to solve? What is their problem? What keeps them awake at night, right? So you change your whole value prop to be about them, not be about you. And then when you do that from an ABM strategy point of view, then that message, that content, that hero asset, that landing page, that digital experience, whatever it is that you create as part of that kind of creative process, it all basically hits that individual, that company, that group of companies, if you're looking to use a one-to-few motion, which is typically 15 or 20 accounts with the same sector, vertical, business challenge, etc., then that message will resonate with them. And that's whether you're trying to sell advertising into large media companies, whether you're trying to sell cyber tech into a certain vertical, whether you're education technology and you're trying to get people to think about the future of education technology, and this is trying to sell into large corporates, and how do you get them to think about tomorrow rather than thinking about today? So the value prop that when we take people on this journey, we have to get everyone involved, just as you said. But what tends to happen, it's quite a light bulb moment. It's quite a light bulb moment because they actually start seeing themselves in a different light, because we basically take everything that they've already created. We look at it in light of the customers that they're trying to talk to. We kind of reverse engineer it backwards and play it back to them in a way that they said, you've changed 5 words, but it's dramatically different to what we had to date. And the client actually understands it more. So that's why we've got some amazing people in our business that can really turn things on their head and present them back in a way that you just say, well, why didn't we do that in the first place? Right. So that's it's so we always say to clients, the VP, the value prop, whatever you have at a corporate level, that's great. And we're not going to touch that. We're just working on your accounts, and we want to talk to these accounts about what they care about.
That's really good. I mean, then you're not muddying the waters with the overall positioning of the company. It's just more for, and then you can prove the value as well. If you manage to get traction within those accounts, it's like, okay, well, it's clearly working, right? So
yeah, and very often what happens is that value prop, which is being used for the ABM strategy, very often goes back up the food chain, and they start asking questions about, well, why didn't we talk about that? Or why don't we present ourselves in this way to the whole market? So there are, it is quite, and that's why going back to these kind of disciplines that don't really exist within organizations. I mean, you as a marketer, me as a marketer, we're okay. We can do what we can write well and everything, but it is a different discipline. This kind of strategic writing, this kind of creative value proposition work. It is, I mean, the guys in our company, I'm always in awe of what they're able to produce. And the very deep thinking that actually goes into it is really quite special. Actually, you don't realize that all the kind of the messaging house and how they've actually gone and digested everything about the client and made sense of it and then turned it around. It is really quite a skill.
Yeah, it's turning that complexity into something simple. I think that's always a thing that I've always found very difficult with coming up with new positioning is like, it's a process, because people see, like, if you're not a marketer, you see on the outside, you see the 5 words, right? that makes up your brand position or your tagline or whatever it is, right? But those 5 words have been boiled down from probably thousands of words, right? And it's a process. It's not that you come up with those 5 words and it's there, because people think, oh yeah, just come up with those 5 words there quickly, you know, but it's actually, yeah, that's the end product of something that has been boiled down and boiled down and boiled down and boiled down many, many times, right?
Yeah.
I just want to take like a little bit of like a step in a different direction, it's a slightly different direction. You've mentioned a couple of times now, one-to-few and one-to-one marketing, right? Now, when it comes to that specific type of marketing, it's incredibly difficult to do, right? Because there's the creative bit, there's the positioning bit, there's the bit about coming up with specialized messaging per accounts and whatnot. But then there's also serving that messaging to accounts, which you're going to have to lean on specific technologies for. Can you give us a bit of an insight into what type of technology you're using, some of the challenges that you have with that one-to-one, for example, or one-to-few? Because it's easy enough to launch some campaigns on LinkedIn to a count list of 5,000 companies, right? But it's not that easy to go out and do the same thing to 10. Okay, so or one, exactly. So how are you leaning on tech for that?
Well, I think it's funny you asked that, because my answer probably would be that you don't need tech.
Okay.
And my answer would be that to do ABM, you don't need any technology. You need a pen and a sheet of paper, and you need to sit down and you need to design a strategy. And then that strategy may or may not include technology. But you could literally start an ABM motion tomorrow by going and sitting down with your VP of sales and saying, hey, tell me which accounts you want to win this quarter. Well, we're actually now in March. Well, there's only whichever quarter you're working on. Which accounts do you want to win? Give me 5 accounts you want to win, and tell me why. And I'll come back to you, and I'll come back to you with a plan. So that is my best advice to anybody wanting to start an ABM strategy: is go and sit down with your VP of sales, get them to tell you which accounts they want to win, and you go away and work on a strategy. That strategy may include technology, and often it does. And I'm not anti-technology. I love it. We've got some great stuff. Our clients use some amazing technology, but we always say ABM is strategy first, technology second. So the strategy will inform which technology will enable that strategy. So having said that, and obviously the more up the pyramid you go from one-to-many to one-to-few to one-to-one, actually the less technology you need, because you're going, as you just mentioned, into a much more personalized. So obviously at the one-to-many, which the reason why one-to-many has taken off, obviously, is the likes of Terminus and Demand Base and Sixth Sense and all these other ABM platforms have done a very, very good marketing job on selling the benefits of their platforms, that you can reach hundreds or thousands of accounts, and you can run programmatic advertising, and you can, you open up the New York Times or the Guardian or whatever you open up, and suddenly you're surrounded by this brand that you never heard of. And that's all well and good, but that doesn't necessarily move the dial. Okay, it doesn't necessarily move the dial. It may feel good, but it doesn't necessarily actually have any response, really. But the more kind of personalized you are with the approach, then the more effective you'll be, really. And I mean, in terms of, as a CMO of an agency, I do the ABM for the agency in order for us to grow. And I've got a very discrete product set of tech that I use. So obviously we're a HubSpot. You could be on any CRM, but obviously HubSpot is the one that we use, and we exploit it to the maximum in terms of everything it can do for us. We've pared back dramatically on automation. We've pared back on sequencing. We've pared back on all of these kind of automatic approaches. We don't do any anymore. We stopped all of that from my own marketing. I just didn't find it was effective. So we do an awful lot more manual work now, an awful lot more curated, an awful lot more tailored approach. We use one piece of technology, which I'm a huge fan of, and we're actually talking to most of our clients now about introducing it, which is called Turtle. You're familiar with Turtle?
Yeah, you can tell us, you can speak about it a little bit, I'll just let people know.
Very briefly.
Yeah.
So Turtle it's a kind of like a content marketing system that allows you to create content and in a very kind of much more compelling way, And so rather than, you know, creating PDFs or Word documents or whatever you want to create, or digital online experience, you can in effect take your existing content, put it into this repository, for want of a better word, and then serve it up to your clients. And you can obviously do some quite deep personalization in terms of either on a singular level to one individual, or you can do personalization at scale to 10 to 50 to 100 to 1,000 people or accounts if you want. So there's an awful lot of ways you can actually serve up the content. We've created a number of playbooks. So if anybody looks on our website after this podcast, we've created an ABM playbook using this Turtle technology that you can see. We've created a monthly newsletter, which we call Dash Dot, which is a monthly dose of account-based everything, which we've created with this experience. So it's a new experience, and what we'll find, and it's all part of our sales process as well. So all of our documentation through our entire sales process with our prospects, and indeed with our customers, is now within this Turtle environment and experience. So they've just got a much more amenable, easier way to consume content, much more based on how people want to access content, as opposed to reading through some PDF of 40 pages and you get to page 10 and you kind of lose the will to live, really.
I've spoken with the guys at Turtle a couple of times, and the way that they've built their product, like, first of all, their tagline is "kill the PDF." They're not a big fan of PDFs, let's say, but they've looked at it very much from a cognitive behavioral perspective. So very, very looking at the human psyche and how people actually digest content, and the best way for people to digest content. And they've built their product that way, which is super interesting. So it's good to hear, like, I haven't used the product, but it's good to hear that it's working well for you guys, because.
And also you get all the analytics, really. So then you actually, for each, so Andy Culligan, you see Andy Culligan, what content did he read within the document? Where did he get to? Which video did he watch? Which poll did he take part in? How long did he spend on that page? When did he go to the next one? You get all the analytics. So when you actually serve this content up, and then you then show it to your sales team, or indeed you can say, look, Andy is clearly interested in this area. So that if you want to start sending him some more content, then he would more than likely appreciate content around this specific area, which is clearly a pain point for him. So you can get much more targeted, and you can really hone in and on what it is that they're actually interested in, as opposed to, you know, with the PDF, you haven't, you know, I'm still amazed today that some very large players in our market, you know, some very large technology partners and players rather, are still creating very, very flat content that, you know, you kind of get very excited by the front cover because it looks really exciting, but when you start going through it, you just kind of lose the will to live, really.
I completely sympathize to that. It's all, like, I think, especially depending on where you're posting content, but it's typically people download the content based on the cover and then take a quick brief look through it, and you get a lead top of funnel with that, but you're not going to be bringing much down through the funnel, let's say. And by the way you're talking about it, you're actually getting value from the content and helping people through the sales process, right?
Well, also, Andy, we've ungated everything, so we don't have any gated content on our websites. So we don't collect any email addresses. The only email addresses we collect is if somebody actually goes and fills in a contact form, clearly. And if they decide to sign up to one of our webinars, so we can actually send them a link to the webinar. But otherwise, all of our content is all ungated and it's free to access, and the people are anonymous to us. We would only know who they are if they came through if they were actually signed up to any one of our communications, and then we could obviously then see who they are. But otherwise, it's all anonymous.
Sure.
So, and that's significantly changed the approach that people take and their engagement as well. So that's dramatically increased the engagement.
Interesting. I've heard that. Yeah, I personally haven't tried that, because that's the thing, is it's a very long-term play, that, right? I see definitely the benefit in it. Typically, a lot of the companies that I would work with would have very, very short-term focus goals. Okay, ABM is account-based marketing is a long-term play as well. So everything about what you guys are doing are long-term plays. I think there are quick wins to be had, but there's very few short-term wins, right?
Well, yes and no. I mean, we've created something that we launched last year, which is called the Kickstarter Accelerator, the ABM Kickstarter Accelerator program, and it's basically designed to give that huge kickstart to your ABM program for the first 3 months while the ABM program is being built. And so we've seen some pretty remarkable results from that in terms of we basically go into a client, we say, look, this is going to take this long. We can't change that. That's how it is. But let's take your existing content. Let's look at the thought leaders that you have in your organization. Let's look at who you're targeting at the moment. And we literally, for 3 months, we do this very intensive campaign into their ICP around their value prop, using thought leaders within their organization to really get their message out there. And it's been quite dramatic, actually, what some of our clients have seen. So there is a motion that you can run simultaneously while you're actually getting the ABM program up and running. And we've obviously called this a Kickstarter Accelerator program.
It's amazing. It's amazing. Okay, I just cognizant of the time here. How about we wrap up, Dec, and you tell people where they can find you and where they can find Strategic ABM, and if you have anything to plug, feel free to do so as well. No. I mean, obviously, I hang out on LinkedIn a lot, like you do, Andy. Declan Mulkeen. I think there's 2 of us in the world. So one's a doctor, and I'm the other one. So if you click on the CMO one rather than the doctor, you'll find me. Strategic ABM. Obviously, we're an ABM agency, and strategicabm.com. Have a look. Download some of our content. Access it. We'd love to hear what you think. We share an awful lot of content on LinkedIn and other channels. So we'd be delighted to hear more. And anybody have any questions, please direct message me. Dec, it's been a pleasure, mate, and really excited to see what you guys are bringing out in the future as well. It's always an interesting conversation around which way account-based marketing is going, and really appreciate you coming on, mate. Thanks a million.
Thank you, Andy. Thanks for having me.
Cheers.